Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Podcast Juice. My name is Michael Dean. Joining me today, Mr. Richard Cole. Sir, how are you?
Doing pretty good. It's a good day.
Man, it's been a long time coming, sir.
Yeah, now since the Time Symposium.
That's right. That's right. With that said, are you doing something on this new one coming up?
No.
Okay.
I wish I could. I'm broken that I can't make this one.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
feel you. I feel you on that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, man, with that said, you have your own podcast and show that you do. Tell the people the name and what it's about.
Okay. Well, it used to be called Amari Purple Talk. It
Mhm.
was a podcast dedicated to the music and artistry of Prince. I decided to switch things up this year, so the show is now called Amari Music Talk.
Okay.
Yeah, so it still covers some Prince
Hmm.
items, but kind of expanding it. One of the things I got coming up now, me and the co-host, we're going to focus on Cameo's Sparkle.
Oh,
No,
wow.
not Sparkle, the Style album,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, from '83.
Oh, I gotta check that out. So
So
you,
yeah,
so
we're going to
you, you,
record that next week.
you doing all, you expanded it out to a wider breadth of music.
Yes, sir.
That's what's up, man. Okay, I love that. Well, with that said, of course, we're going to be talking about some Prince today. Um, and you just dropped a cameo on me, and I just have to ask you, like, so what's your favorite cameo album, if you have one?
Let's see. I got the Alligator Woman because it's
Okay.
got Be Yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's got Flirt on it.
Okay. I
But
rock
yeah,
with Cameosis.
okay.
That's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, Cameo, they're among my top four funk bands of the '80s.
wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
them, of course, the time, of course, but
Larry Blackman, I hate to say underrated, but it's
yeah,
not spoken enough in high regard as it should be, in my opinion. Like Larry
yeah,
Graham, Charlie Singleton, yeah, them
yeah,
dudes cold, man. Yeah. I
yeah.
was just makes me remember I
Them
was
songs.
playing the other day, was it called Girl Next Door? When he did the
Oh,
song for Bobby?
Bobby Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had Bobby like he was in Cameo.
Yeah,
Man.
that was a cool little track though. That was pre Don't Be Cruel era.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I thought that was the cut. Because I think was the first single on was that the same album that had Girlfriend? I need a
Yeah,
girlfriend. Yeah. Okay, Bobby. So
yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, yeah, man. That's what the time.
Nice.
I was with my daughter, she's 19, and she has been going through a new edition phase. And it's just
Okay.
cool. I'm like, the dad watching, I'm like, wow, okay. She kind of looks at them how I used to look at the Temptations when I was younger. Like I knew they were big, but it was from a different time. But I'm like, man, the new edition is her Temptations. That's funny to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just kind of getting off that in a quick second. The parallels between them and the Temptations,
Absolutely.
except New Edition has managed to still retain all the original members.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, that's
that's a
true.
blessing. They still got all of them, on
Yeah,
the planet.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like they're just now, I don't know if I should say just now, but they're really getting the props on a major label, or excuse me, level now, like
Yes.
doing these arena tours and stuff. I think that's awesome, man. Like,
Oh yeah.
they deserve it. They've worked so hard and put in stuff. I mean, they had the movie, it was really popular. And I think that
That it. Yeah.
opened them up to a whole new generation of
Yeah.
kids. Um, well, see, we're just going down a rabbit hole.
You're right.
But I was listening to Any Heartbreak this week as well, and it was the song. It's the song where they talk about like all the other groups that trying to be like them.
Oh, this is where it started from.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I never think about it at the time I'm listening to it. I'm like, who are they talking about? Because to me, I was listening to that. I was saying, I said, if the Jacksons had did this song, that would have been very interesting because they would have been talking about New Edition and all these other groups. And
Right.
I was curious, do you remember who were some of the groups
Who's
that they could have been mentioning? Like who was copying New Edition at during
uh,
88
Oh,
87, right? Because that's when that song came out on that Any Heartbreak album.
right. When did Troop's first album? Because I know they had the big hit later,
Oh, right.
but they had an album to drop
That's right.
about that same time, didn't
True. That's right. I forgot
they?
about True. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
oh man, I'm drawing a blank on the other one.
That's right. I forgot about True. Yes, absolutely. Spread my wings, it's
Yeah.
popping. Ah, yes. And they all what they all had, and I was telling my daughter, I said, the thing about them though, they was all on Mike, Mike
Yes.
Jackson. Like there was the Michael Jackson guy of the group. Who
Right.
was the Michael of the group? You know what I mean? Ralph was in it. I don't know the brothers' names in Troop, but a couple of them
Yeah.
had the Michael thing, kind
Right.
of going. And I was telling, I said that was such a strong. Uh, he had such a strong presence,
Hmm.
particularly in R&B, that it was always the Michael Jackson element and all the. Remember the group from overseas? Is it? It's not High Five or something, or
Oh yeah. It was a family group. I think
yeah,
that is it. High five.
was it High Five? They were. Yeah, you could see one of the dudes. He had the hair like Mike, and it's like I was like, man, Mike he had it on lock. Like
Yeah.
it was amazing. But anyway,
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So back to the
right.
back to the show.
But yeah, well, we talk about music, man. For
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
who watch us, they know we
Yeah.
love it all. So, but get back to Prince, man. So Prince, one of the things we were going to talk about today, and we are I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Sorry, was Purple Rain, the movie, and
Hmm.
not to talk about in terms of the album and the movie, but I was thinking like the terms of the popularity of Prince, and I'm arguing that Prince's wide mainstream success or visibility was in part due to a movie. Of course, the music is always center
Hmm.
stage. Little Red Corvette was probably his
Right.
first major mainstream crossover hit that brought a lot of people into Prince.
Hmm.
But even me personally, and it's probably due to where I live. I'm living here in Seattle. I had kind of heard Little Red Corvette, but not really. Not I didn't really identify it with Prince per se.
Okay.
Didn't really see his visual like that. I don't think I had MTV enough that I was able to see him all the time. But when Doves Cry came out, it was all over the radio, of course,
Hmm.
all over TV, MTV,
MTV. Yeah.
and then that movie came, and it was the movie, of course, with the music. Then everybody was talking about Prince. People that never was really into him before had heard of him. You knew who he was.
It was
He had
right.
a major motion picture that was a blockbuster movie aside from the music. And I
Hmm.
was just thinking, like, I said, well, for all of the greatness that he has done up until that point, it was a movie that put his face and brought all of that whole scene to everyone around the country at the same time. That's just kind of what I was arguing. But you have sort of a different take on that. I'd love to hear what you think. And so I'm asking,
Okay.
was it was it the movie that made him a superstar? Go ahead.
I want to say yeah, and as you were saying earlier, what I was thinking about was every other rock star
Mhm.
was already a household name. They had a ton of top, hit 10, number one hits.
Right.
Prince was on that trajectory. And here he comes with a movie without hardly, the mainstream knowing.
Mhm.
Now, for St. Louis, it was a different story. We had four, probably still have four black radio stations
Okay.
here. And the word of mouth, from For You, second album, Dirty Mind, you had that, and the concert appearances, the Controversy Tour,
Mm.
you had the Triple Threat Tour, 1999.
Mhm.
So there was major love for Prince, but yeah, that MTV crowd. it took them a while to catch up, and the rest of America to catch up to them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, and like I've always said, every time I went to Houston, Texas, in the early '80s to visit, Prince was heavy in the streets. Like, that was the thing. But
Yeah,
just where I lived, had never heard of him like that. I just like, huh? So I can imagine, yeah, in certain markets, he was already a star.
start right,
Majority of black markets across the country in the South, Midwest, they was on him heavy. Detroit,
right.
they was on Prince heavy. But yeah, that top 40 look, he was starting to seep in, and then it's just interesting because Prince fans, I'm a Prince fan.
Mm.
If you bring up Purple Rain album, I'm like, it's almost like I don't want to talk about it. Why they always talk? But I mean, the thing about it is, man, if you look at those records, those albums, all the way up to Purple Rain, that is such a trajectory, of his art, that there's a
Yeah,
reason why that album is as heralded as it is. I mean, it's dope. Like,
right.
let's not play around. And backing it with a movie, with the time, it's just like a full court rush. Like, it's just so in your face. And I mean, he benefits from the fact that, you mentioned this off camera, there have been other rock movies before that are not, they're cult classics, as you said.
Yeah,
But his went beyond, I think, and I wonder if the intention of his movie was it was just going to be a cult classic, possibly, but obviously it became a major,
major.
Hollywood movie block, I mean, uh, big movie.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, I think that puts his career on a whole. It's almost like he still maintains being the cult hero, and I think I've had this conversation before.
mm,
Cult hero, but with the super machine of the industry taking it so that it's not just a cult thing. It's not just in the black charts. It's on the whole
whole
spectrum. Like,
spectrum. Right,
access.
and with his
Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, and with his versatility as a
Mhm.
musician too.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't like James Brown where you got funk,
Hmm.
from beginning to end. He did kind of do, like the standards from the 40s and 50s every now and then, but James Brown's bass was funk.
Yeah.
But, James never did like a major motion picture. He kind of was in some of those
Yeah, he was
some
a
of those kind of forgettable
rock
rock films.
living in America.
Yep. Oh, that was the biggest. I'll talk about the ski party movies with
Right.
Frankie and Annette, or whoever.
Hilarious. That's right. Yeah, man. But yeah, you're right. His
Yeah.
versatility though of music,
Mhm.
like so he's not doing just funk. He's doing some pop. He's doing some rock.
Rock. Yes.
So he's in all of the genres, doing it all on one sort of stage. Um, but yeah, I just think it's to me it's interesting to think like, yeah, that it was a movie
Mhm.
that blew the door wide open to reveal what was already there.
Right.
The other thing I was going to ask you about too, and I was watching this the other day, it's Under the Cherry Moon, and like that movie, and I'm bringing up my daughter again because she hadn't really seen it before,
Mhm.
and I was playing it, and she was looking at it, and she was looking at it kind of like, what is this, And I'm like, this is Prince. And I'm like, I said, this is a guy who blew up. He's got carte blanche to do whatever he wants to do, and no one can tell him nothing. I was like, you look at
Right.
this movie. This is the movie of a guy who doesn't have to take no from
Good.
anybody. Like whatever his wild thought was, he could do it and execute it. There's a
Yeah.
big budget behind it. It's not some hood move. You know what I mean? It's not a low. They
Well.
let they're like, you want to go to Paris and some brothers running game on white women? And, okay, yeah. You know what I mean? Like he could have done anything else. He decided that's what he was gonna do, and it's gonna be in black and white. Like there is such a
Yeah.
it's such a I was like, that's what when you made it, that's somebody who made it big, and now they're in control and they're just doing whatever the hell he wants to do, whether it makes sense to anybody else. If it made sense to him, and I was like, that's why one of the reasons I admire the movie because it's just crazy. Like I was like, what is going on in
It's
this movie? But I love it. Like, um,
yeah.
and the
You
thing,
know.
let me just add one quick. And
Oh, go ahead.
the thing is, the movie didn't work. In terms of was not successful at all. It was really like people, it was really like a game changer in terms of the negative sort of feedback to that movie. But
Mm,
imagine if that movie would have worked. Like his intention going into it was that it was going to be big, right? He
right.
wasn't half-assing it. Uh, they thought it was going to be just as big as Purple Rain, right? They had the big contest, Sheridan, Wyoming.
Yeah. Remember
You
that.
know, the album push. He had the number one song, Kiss. So the lead into it was that this was going to be the next Prince. He's smiling now. He totally changed his image, right?
Yeah.
You got to see him laughing and joking. And even personally, he seemed like, the way he was acting at the premiere party was like a Prince we had never seen before. And I was just wondering, I was like, what if this would have worked? Would it have changed how he would
Mm.
have the Prince that we would have saw? Would he would have been in more movies, or would he have been more happy and you know what I mean? I was very curious, and because he had all the fashion and everything, I was
Mm.
like, what if this had actually worked? Like, would he have been a different? Would he have done Sign of the Times? We're
Oh,
speculating, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
man, there's so many layers to that one. I don't even know where to start. Let's see.
Take your time.
I know, first thing that came to mind, because I watched the movie again last night,
Oh,
to get ready for the show after not seeing it for, oh my God, how long. But I mean, my own memories of it was, yeah, I was hyped just based on everything you were saying about it. It's like, this is different. It's a different look, a different sound. What is this movie going to be?
mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to lie, I was somewhat disappointed
mm,
when I went to the theater to see it.
mm,
Like, I didn't think it was terrible, but it was just, I just couldn't comprehend what I was watching. And I had gone to see it like maybe two or three more times
mm.
after that in the theater.
Okay.
But over time, having it home video, DVD, it's a movie that has really grown on me. And I
Mm.
look at it more like almost like this weird romantic comedy instead of a drama.
Yeah,
And I have more fun with it that way.
I can see that.
So with that being said, I think, if we're going into the multiverse, if we're talking about a variant version of the movie, check this out. The
Okay.
way that would have worked if he had discovered this film student and tapped him to direct it,
Mm.
because this film student in our timeline made a
Oh,
low budget,
I know where
black
you're
and
about to
white
go.
film,
I'm feeling it. Ooh, okay.
and while it wasn't I guess it was a financial success based on the budget, but the critical success
Right.
put Spike Lee on the map.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think if there was some weird combination or some hybrid
Wow.
of what Prince was trying to do with the movie, combined with some of the things that Spike Lee was doing, I don't know,
Mm.
maybe you could still do it in Paris. Maybe if it stayed in America, the setting. I,
Wow. I never even thought about that. I think she's got to have it come out now. I just got to look that up.
and I think, also too, more better blues is the graffiti bridge
Mm, mm.
that Prince should have done.
Can you imagine if more? Yeah, if it was more better blues, but it was Prince, and he was
Exactly.
a guitar player. Maybe he was a I don't know blues player. If it was a blues guitar player. and it would have been pretty
That yeah, that's the story that Prince should have told. I know he was, he's always on that spiritual level, and
Mhm.
he's always going to go promote that before anything else. But had he gone in that direction of,
Mm,
and it didn't still have to be Purple Rain too, but just having the same setting as Mo Better Blues, you have this band, you have new sounds like hip hop coming in, New Jack
mhm,
Swing competing,
mm.
and you have the new power generation struggling to make it. You got, once again, Morris Day and the Time, the rival band. But I could see Prince and Morris having that same conversation that Denzel and Wesley was having about,
Wow.
you
Okay.
know,
I
keeping
like
the
that.
integrity of the
Yeah.
music.
Yeah. Wow. And then I can't. What was that lady's name? What was in Mo Better Blues? Ah, she was fine as hell.
Oh yeah.
God, I could. I gotta look
Okay.
it up. But I could see how she could play against Prince. Like that would have been his thing. Too. Ah, man, you got me thinking. And I'm just
Let's see.
looking up. Well, She's Gotta Have It came out the same year as Under the Cherry Moon. Why
No,
don't I know?
Graffiti Bridge.
I mean, excuse me. No,
Oh,
no,
she's got to have it.
She's Gotta
Oh,
Have
she's
It
got to have it. Yeah. Okay.
86.
Yeah.
Cherry Moon came out in '86. I don't know why I don't remember those in the same time frame, but that's incredible. Interesting. They're both black and white.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Prince and Spike Lee, yeah, they in our timeline, they do converge a few times, right? Like Girl 6,
Yeah.
of course. Um,
Yeah. He did that.
what's the Money Don't Matter Tonight? Spike
Yeah.
directs that. Of course, Spike is a big Prince fan.
Right.
Oh man, that would have yeah. Ah, if they'd have did a movie together, that would have been awesome. Wow.
That would have been.
Mm.
Let's
You never know. There could be a things, stranger things that happen. There could be a Spike Lee directed Prince biofilm. That would be. I would not be mad at that. I mean,
Yeah.
arguing who would play Prince, but that Spike was behind it,
Yeah.
I would be like, well, you know what? If there's one person that I would know that's gonna try and take it with some integrity, it would be Spike Lee.
Spike Lee. Yeah. Definitely.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, man. Mo Better Blues.
Yeah.
I can almost see
Oh,
the Prince album
Cinda,
soundtrack. What's her
Cinda
name?
Williams.
Cinda. Yeah, man. I thought she was gonna be the next. She was in something else. She was in another movie. It was like a
Oh,
kind of a thriller, a sexy thriller. I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole of that.
I know what you.
You probably remember it a little bit, but yeah, that's right, man. Yeah, I could. Yeah, you cut in and you could through. That's interesting. What if now we're really just geeking out? And then
Yeah.
Nona Gay would have played that role or something. That's
Okay. Yeah.
interesting, man. Well, yeah, I mean, so, but just the whole thing of Prince in the movies was a thing. Obviously, and of course,
Hmm.
Purple Rain over here, Under the Cherry Moon, Sign of the Times, Graffiti Bridge.
Bridge.
No matter how you feel about these movies, the fact that not only was he the music dude, had that on lock,
Right.
upper echelon of quality, integrity, just all that super musician.
Hmm.
He was also making big Hollywood movies. I mean, in terms of they weren't, yeah, they were big, well, relatively big budget movies for what he was doing. I mean, they were studio films. They weren't,
Films.
you know, coming out independently. They was on Warner Bros.
Right.
That's a big thing. To the fact that you can have a
Mhm.
Prince movie collection of legitimate productions that he's done. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's insane, man. Like a lot of artists don't. Most artists don't have that. They may have had one movie that they were in.
Yeah.
Of
One.
course, I think now with rappers and hip hop, they're
They
all
built
in
a whole
movies.
second career. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was one
It's
of the
like
guys that
athletes.
started. I would say he kind of started it on that level. Like, yeah, you could have multiple movies, man. Like, and they could
Yeah.
be a thing. Um,
yeah. And going back to Purple Rain, that film, because again, that was pre Spike Lee.
Mm,
He was right in between.
yeah.
What we were getting in the '70s with Shaft and Superfly, The
Hmm.
Mac. That it came crashing to a halt, like what, mid '70s, almost
Yeah.
late '70s. And then you had, I'm gonna bring this up too. I think the only one holding it down that wasn't Richard Pryor or
Okay.
wasn't Eddie Murphy, but like those kind of low budget films, which I think the mindset of Purple Rain was going to fall into that category, are those Leon Kennedy films with Jane Kennedy.
Penitentiary.
Penitentiary, yeah,
Yeah, man. You know what? I see what. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, those were again low budget, but
Hmm.
they were marketed to. I mean, they were I guess the mainstream saw it, but
You know those. Yeah,
it's
those
mostly
are
yeah,
black movie. Essentially, it was like you said, marketed to a black audience. I mean, in the black market, those were big movies.
yeah.
I remember as a kid, I remember seeing the imagery of that penitentiary too.
Rated R. And I'm like, damn it,
Yeah, right. Maybe
3
my
more
dad might.
years.
Yeah, maybe my dad might. If I go to my dad's house, my mom, he might let me see it. Yeah,
Maybe to be on cable.
right. Yeah, man.
But yeah, but that I think that was what a lot of people. I mean, I don't know. Prince was probably looking at it like, yeah, this is going to be big.
Hmm.
But from every like the Revolution to other outsiders, they thought like, oh well, okay, Prince film, okay, I
Yeah,
guess it
right.
worked.
It almost sounds as if Warner Brothers had the same sort of. They didn't think it was going to be nothing either. Like I remember hearing the interviews.
Mhm.
I'm butchering people's names, but Prince's management, had to really convince Warner Brothers that
Yeah,
you need to put this out all over, not just in Detroit, L.A., or whatever. No, this can be a big thing. I think like they had to do the test
hmm,
audiences to show like, these kids are going crazy for this.
crazy.
Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah, even they were didn't know what they probably had necessarily. Uh,
yeah. They only gave him what 7 million to
yeah,
make
okay,
that.
yeah, yeah, and had to fight for distribution. Um, but of course, once that music dropped, no
Yeah,
question, like, okay, this album is fire. MTV done attached onto it. This guy's
yeah.
gone, man. He's gone. When did you? I imagine you saw Purple Rain when it first came out.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I want to say I've seen it 35 times before it even made it to VHS.
Really? Damn, that was like your Star Wars.
I was telling, it was on another show. I was telling somebody the funny thing with St. Louis was that when Purple Rain came out,
Mhm.
everybody ran out and got bands the next day.
Yes. That yeah.
As later on, some other movies would come out and people decide to do some other stuff
Right.
the next day.
Now, see, I'm glad you brought this up because the power of the movies had such a strong impact
Mm,
on our cultures, no matter what generation that
yes.
was. Like, yeah, that Purple Rain, yeah, overnight, nigga, we wanted to be in a band and change your style up.
Yep.
I was mesmerized by Apollonia and just seeing a woman that looked like that. I was like, whoa.
And wait, and she replaced Vanity.
Yeah.
Remember?
I was like, and one thing that I was so enamored with was just the glimpses of them rehearsing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's you got to practice and you got to put in work. We
Work. Yeah.
working. I was so memorized by that. But just to back to my bigger point was to say, I think you may be alluding to some of these other movies. I remember when Colors came out.
Yep.
We wouldn't no one at least in my area, I had knew nothing about gangbanging, and Colors came out. Sure enough, everybody
Mhm.
started trying to want to be into that. Boys in the
Yep.
Hood came
Yep.
out.
Menace to
Oh,
Society. All the.
Venice. Yeah, it was
I mean,
all these movies had
yeah,
such an
and I
impact.
mean, good movies, but it was like, yeah. I mean, I moved to California in '87,
Ooh.
So I knew about everything that was going on, but oh man, like the closest thing to that was like maybe East St. Louis or something like that. But other than
Okay.
that, nah, it you didn't have what was going on nowadays
Mm-hmm.
back then. But yeah, fast forward maybe 2 years later, then that stuff started slowly. It turned into Ice Cube's My Summer Vacation. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah. It was before, obviously before the internet, and so a lot of things were regional,
yeah,
right? They just L.A. had this, DC had
they
that
had
style. New
right
York obviously had that style. But once these movies came, you got a glimpse to what that other area was like, and then the fashions, the slang, the attitudes
to
started to trickle out to
trickle.
other parts of the
Yes,
country. It
mhm,
was almost like a mind virus, and for good or bad, right? Like I
yeah,
said, for Prince's thing was a mind virus that swept. Everybody had to have a Jerry curl, whatever. I didn't know nothing about him having a perm. I just the closest I could afford was a Jerry curl, so I got
yeah,
Jerry curl. But all of that stuff, yeah,
yeah.
was so. In the same way, now to me, here was a switch. Maybe you could speak to this. When Cherry Moon came out, Prince wasn't. Uh, he wasn't at the cutting edge of the culture or black
It
culture.
was
It was
right.
shifting, rap and things were starting to come. So when he came with Cherry Moon, for me, it still had the same effect that Purple Rain had. Like I wanted to be Christopher Tracy. I wanted to
Uh,
dress. I had to get my trench, but I knew everyone, my friends, were on like Run DMC, LL Cool J, and they were looking at me like, "What are you doing? Like that stuff ain't cool no more." And it was sort of shifting, uh, and that was to me part of the movie. I think was because he just. I know some of the fans are. He looked crazy I mean, in a good way, but
it
he
was
just looked so unlike anybody else, and you could probably get away with looking like Prince from the Purple Rain era, but he was so far beyond
no,
by the time of Cherry Moon, you couldn't rock that.
no,
You couldn't rock what he was wearing, and you couldn't have your hair like that really, and he was so done up, like, you ain't gonna get away with that, so it just looked
no,
so like, yeah, that ain't and people were going to a more streets, hardcore, type of aesthetic, and it was
yeah.
just so, like and I remember my friends, like, teasing, like, "Oh, man, he's soft, man, yeah, what do you oh, that's Mike on his little Prince stuff," it
Oh
was always
man,
that little stuff. You kinda had to hide low key kinda had to hide it a little bit, you couldn't turn it up when
uh,
if you turn up Houdini and all the other one, but kinda turned it down a little bit. "Ah, that's all good." Did
yeah,
you
yeah,
experience that?
yeah. I mean, but it was for me. It was a little bit different
Mhm.
because I like 1999 was the one where I ran out and got a band,
Okay.
and so through that, maybe by the time Purple Rain came out, then it was a cat I went to high school with. Ran into him at the college
Mm.
and found out he was into keyboards and could write. So that was kind of like that that brother you needed.
Mhm.
Like okay, if I talk about a Prince record, he knows where I'm going with it. If I
Yeah.
talk about a Cameo record, he knows where I'm going with it.
Mhm.
Where maybe people on the outside, maybe not like friends, but acquaintances, yeah, you probably get teased a little bit here and there. But yeah, I mean, where we couldn't dress like Prince, we were kind of like, nah, we ain't gonna rock that. But luckily, there was the time.
Yes.
And luckily, there was Miami Vice.
Yes. Yes, yeah.
So, so our thing became kind of like that hybrid of those two things. It was
Okay.
kind of like Jam and Lewis meet Crockett and Tubbs.
Hilarious.
So so we probably get clown for being a little too dressy,
But it was
But
acceptable. You could, like, you get a pass on that. Oh, okay, yeah. You could
right,
almost play it as it still had a little player, smooth kind of thing to it, like, "Oh,
right,
okay, y'all cool," you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
right. We go into the club. Half the club think we were drug dealers, the other half think we were cops. So it's like, you know.
Hilarious.
So we knew, okay, we got this down now.
Yeah, yeah.
But very few people were like, oh, y'all in that Prince. We got very
Okay.
few laughs. Maybe the Jerry Curl still got the laughs, but we were clean.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. It's the time Morris. That was the connection to the street, though. Like Morris Day was never corny. Like I mean, what I mean.
Right.
Like it was, oh yeah, Morris Day. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's even to this day still always,
Yeah. Mad respect for,
yeah, mad respect, and that's
hip hop. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Morris Day in the time. Yeah, man. I remember one
Yep.
time I met with some younger brothers. I think we were at a job or something, and I would, of course, I'd be always playing my Prince stuff, and they'd be playing like Scarface and all that. But I
Yeah.
remember one time he let me put in "Get It Up," and he had one of the pedal systems. Man, that shit.
Okay.
Boom, dum, 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 that whole car was thumping. They was like, "Oh, yeah." I was like, "Yeah, I'm telling you, man." I said they got some stuff. They were like, "Oh," but yeah, the
Yeah.
time always was killing them. Man.
Yeah.
And then Jesse came out kind of after Purple Rain. Jesse came through, and he
Yeah.
had what's the song? Free
Free
World.
World.
Free
Yeah.
World. That was heat. Like
Yeah.
that was okay. I remember when Jesse. You remember when Jesse, like the first Jesse album, he was
Oh,
hitting. Like
yeah.
everyone was rocking that, man.
Yeah, because that dropped before, like Jesse was earlier that year, and then
Yeah,
Morris came out with Color of Success later that year.
that's right.
And it was
That's right.
like, yeah, that Jesse album was nice,
Yeah, man.
nice.
He was on one with that.
Yeah,
But yeah, man, that
yeah,
just the changing of the style, you could see it, and like I said, when Cherry Moon came out, there was a different, rap really was
it was.
starting to take a hold and was kind of shifting a little bit. And I think that may lead into sort of his decisions of, oh, okay, did Sign of Times, but yeah, let me do this black album. They kind of questioning
Question my
my black.
integrity.
Yeah, it's funny to think about that now because it's like who would question Prince, but back then that was a real thing. Like people was like, man, that's
Well,
kind
yeah,
of
because he wasn't
corny or
the
something. Like,
yeah,
but
because he wasn't the only one.
mm,
The '80s was like that. I don't know. It's an interesting period of time musically.
mhm,
Um, I look back at maybe like the early 60s, there was this wave of, kind of mainstream crossover,
mm,
where you had like the Drifters, the Shirelles, groups like that. But it was never their sound. It was like they weren't like, oh, we're going to make this sound to cater to white folks. It's just, we're going to, drop this, save the last dance for me or whatever, or will you still love me tomorrow? And
mhm,
it grabbed people.
mm,
But then it took that British invasion to come by. And
mm,
even though like the Stones and the Beatles, they weren't like, oh, they were giving props to all black music. But the people, the record companies and the industry were still trying to push them like, look, look at these guys, look at their hair, look at how
mm,
they dress. You could dress like that. You don't and they're covering black music. So
mm,
you still had that, but you still had James Brown, you still had Motown, Stax,
mhm.
and they didn't compromise their sound
Right.
to grab to still grab people. But then when you started getting the corporate takeovers of the radio stations,
Mm,
then it kind of it started to create this thing where now record industries had to have black music divisions. Now you had to have black music in this section of the record store and rock music over here in this section of the record store. And of course, here comes Michael Jackson again, who was just creating pure music,
right.
but it crossed over so much that the rest of the record, and well, also too Lionel Richie, he was starting to create.
Outrageous.
Yes.
For those who know.
Oh yeah, I remember that every year.
Salute
But
Mr.
yeah, he
Rip.
was, but he was the songs that he was coming out with, but it was, coming from him. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to intentionally write this for
Right.
whatever. But those two, and then maybe a little bit of Prince with Little Red Corvette,
Hmm.
that crossed over to a magnitude to where the record industry was like, oh, well, now you got to do something to appeal to the mainstream because look at how much Thriller is making. Look how
Hmm.
much 1999 and Purple Rain is making, and look how much
Hmm.
Lionel is making. And then, here comes Whitney Houston right behind that.
Right.
And all of a sudden now you got Cool in the Gang, switching up from funky stuff to Joanna.
Yes.
Now I like Joanna, but
I love you. I love Clint. Man, they had hits. They kept coming year after year, though.
yeah, but and you had other groups trying to figure out what to do. And
Mhm.
I think when hip hop started to, just like punk in the 70s, they started looking at these established artists like, what are y'all doing? Y'all selling out. No, we're
Mhm.
gonna keep it real. And once again, not, change the integrity of our sound just to please the masses. No, we're gonna bring the masses to us.
That's
And
yeah. And it's so funny that even at a certain point, even hip hop falls into that.
yeah,
Which I would argue that's what it is now.
yeah.
Way.
I mean, it's, just like, whatever, classic rock, jazz, blues, it kind of falls into those hands that make it into something that it originally wasn't. And
Mhm.
now, it's kind of in danger of being whitewashed or, appropriated or, assimilated into something else.
Yeah. Yeah, you brought up some great points though, just the changing of the industry and how that affects the music,
Yeah.
how the super success of, like you said, of something like a Thriller and those things sort of changes everything. Like, okay, we gotta have superstar blockbuster albums, you know what
Right.
I mean? And we have to position the artist to be that type of thing, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
where
yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm sorry about that. MTV, same
Right.
thing. That was, I think, the final nail to where
Mm,
now you had to look a certain way. You
mhm.
couldn't be,
Yeah.
you really couldn't be yourself. And, I don't know, can't think of anybody. I say like I don't know, like a Van Morrison or somebody like that, or even Luther Vandross. It was like,
Mhm.
it wasn't enough. Now you got to be this package
You
and
got
glossed over and
the grown men of music got etched out.
right.
You know what I mean? Like before you could have a Teddy Pendergrass, Barry White, Kenny Rogers. They could be grown ass men that
Yeah,
was the singers. And then once that MTV came, the ages went, down. They had to be young and all that type of thing to fit this sort of
yeah.
aesthetic. But the grown men
Grown man.
to this
Oh,
day aren't
and
ain't really seen not on the level of they were the top stars. You know what I'm saying?
right,
Like Lionel Richie was a grown ass man
right.
when he was hitting, but he ain't no grown ass. I mean, who's the grown ass men that are at the
Who's
top?
left?
You know what I'm saying?
Uh, I don't know. Not at the top because the industry's not going to allow that
Right.
anymore. But I don't know.
Even
I
the group.
tell my wife all the time about she'll see Tyrese on the television in some movie,
Mhm.
and it's like she's not familiar with like his whole career. And I'm like, well, yeah,
Right.
he started off. Actually, I think he started off singing in a Coke commercial,
Yep. On the
and then he
bus.
branched off into TV and movies. And then he was doing R&B, and he sounded like a grown ass man when he was
Right.
singing.
Right.
But the industry, it's not catering to that. There's a cat now. Um, what's his name? His name is October London.
I heard of him.
He's on Snoop's label, Death Row.
Okay. Is
Now,
this the thing with the Marvin Gaye
yes,
imagery? Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Dude sounds just like him.
Really? I haven't listened. Okay. I need
Oh
to
yeah, by all means, check. Yeah, the Return of Marvin is that album. So I listened to that and I went back and checked
interesting.
out his earlier ones, and he's got some stuff. He's sounded like Marvin. He's got a couple of things he sounded like Smokey. There's some things he does in his natural voice too. But yeah, he ain't coming in soft on
I
on the
mean,
tracks.
it's one. It's I guess we're at a place where you could have your album. I don't know if this is debut album, but you could come out and call it the return of another, you know, artist you don't really supposed to even touch. But the
Yeah,
fact, you know what I mean? Like that's where we're at though. Where it's a lot because if this was back in the day, we wouldn't have been able to come out with no album talking about
no,
you to return. Who? Well, I'm the return. I'm the new Prince or new. If you don't get the hell up out of here,
right.
you know. Even like D'Angelo, if he would have had his thing and called it Return of Marvin or Return of Prince, it'd have been like,
Be like,
eh,
get out of
no,
town.
man, I don't care how good it is. Don't do that. Don't call it that. But I mean, that's where we're at today.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the state of the industry now.
Wow, wow, yeah, man. It's we were just kind of going with the conversation, but I guess the newer MTV sort of cultural moment, I guess, is maybe the internet
Mhm.
or maybe Spotify or some of these streaming situations. So just disrupt music to the point where it's not even a big business, really. It's a big business, but it's a big business for the streaming service, not the music part
Music,
of it, right? Like
right?
that's just there to make this happen. But the star of the show is Spotify. It ain't, you know what I mean? It's
What
not really the music.
title? Or,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You guys get the pennies. We get the riches and you're disposable. We're not. You know what I mean? Like that's where there's a sense that's where it's at. And the artist, I guess, is to say, well, I'll just do a podcast. I'm not gonna do, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's bigger than the music. Artists be on social media. That's bigger than the
yeah,
performance of the songs almost.
yeah. Brandon, IP, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, the Motown 25 moment now, I guess it's probably just some viral video of you arguing with some. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like it's not the, oh, did you see the dance move necessarily? It's, oh, they're in the midst of this drama. That's why that's more important than their music.
it's it's that or excuse me, it's that or just the nostalgia. I've seen in the last 2 months, I've seen more clips of the Jackson Five. And now, granted, this is my favorite Jackson Five era. That sort of get it together to move in violation period.
Okay.
I've seen more clips on between those albums, especially Move in Violation album. I've seen more
Hmm.
clips on social media than I've ever seen when I was 9 years old. Like, oh, the Jackson Five on Mike Douglas. Oh, my grandmother waking me up. Hey, the Jackson Five on Johnny Carson. Oh, okay.
Mhm, mhm.
Got to check it out. It's good. Because those albums didn't sell well because Motown wasn't
Right.
promoting them as much, except for Dancing Machine.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's either you get this nostalgia, but again, the Jacksons aren't benefiting from
Right.
that unless they put the clips up themselves,
Right. Right. And
or
even
like you
that
say,
is
is
still pennies to what they should be getting for that.
getting exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah, getting back to that too. Their best albums, they were remastered for streaming, but no physical media,
Right.
except for the Jacksons live.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Because see, for me, my favorite Jackson album, and partly nostalgia, but I just love the whole thing is Destiny.
yes,
Like for me, that's, I mean, I just remember being a kid, had the 8 track, had the record. I know every line of every song, Michael's voice, just everything about looking at the cover. That was like, it's like, man,
oh
that's
yeah.
just
I was like, they made it because I was happy when they left Motown
okay.
because reading Jet magazine, they were like, yeah, we want to write our own songs, produce. I was like, okay, cool,
Mhm.
bring it. And then Jermaine stayed behind. I was like, oh, that's a bummer, but okay. But I bought the Gamble and Huff
Okay.
produced albums. Yeah, those are some great albums too. But yeah, Destiny, I think out of that epic period is my
Yeah.
favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. I would tell you, again, bring up my daughter a lot. We were in the car yesterday and we're Never Can Say Goodbye came on. And I was just like, oh, And I told her, I said, man, think about Michael Jackson. To me, particularly like that young Michael Jackson, like that, I said, he was. Oh, first I told her, I said, that's one of the most beautiful things black people that we had. Like, there was an innocence about him. He was that little black
Yeah.
boy. He was the little brother that you always wanted. For some, he was the boyfriend, kind of cute
The
boy.
whole, yeah.
They was a family. You know, he was, and his voice. He was dynamic. I was like, he was a kid at all of that,
Yeah.
and we watched him grow. And I was just like, he still yeah, I mean, he went to the top and there's some wild stuff, but he was one of the most beautiful things. I mean, not the only, but he was one of the most
Yeah.
beautiful things that we've ever had. And that's why to me, it'll always work. And I was telling her, I said, this is in terms of music and like just something radiating out of people. That's us at
Mhm.
one of some of our greatest shit, man. Like that dude, there was a pureness about him that we all loved, you
Yeah.
know, whether he was at the top of the charts or not. That was that little black boy. He was just that little black boy that was wonderful. And that was a thing. You don't really see that much today. You see sprinkles of it. I'm gonna give you an example.
Yeah.
I think some of these last examples you see that is Everybody Loves Chris. It's the little black boy who was wonderful. He wasn't a bad kid. He was really sweet. He made you just feel love. Some you would argue Webster, Gary Coleman, of course, Michael. I'm probably forgetting some other people, but that was a thing. Like it was always the little black boy who was, it spawns a whole genre. We talked about New Edition earlier.
Yeah.
They were latched on to that. Troop.
Yeah.
So many things that what he meant, that made his shit so specialized. And even groups, even a person like a little Bow Wow is to that lineage
Hmm.
of, the little black boy that's doing something that grown folks do, but he's doing it in it's almost an innocent way. You
Right.
know what I mean? I don't know if it kind of spawns from like a little Stevie Wonder or something,
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
that was a thing, and I don't think we really have that per se today. And it's something that's now the little black boys. I'm really reaching here, but listen, uh, the show Snowfall. I don't know if you've ever seen that show.
Yeah.
Franklin is in today's effed up world. He is the little black boy, but now this look
Mhm.
how he is portrayed. You know what I mean? Now he is the most evil. He started out kind of innocent, but now he's killing people and just destroying everything. But that's how
Mhm.
much has been twisted. So
Gotcha.
and I
Yeah.
worry about like, man, we've allowed our things that we held so dear and loved to be spun in such a way, as such a almost a heartless world
Mhm.
that's the little black boy has spawned into that. And it's I question. I'm like, man, we need the little black boy that has optimism.
Yeah. We
You know
need
what I'm saying? We can't all be hardcore. We can't all be, we need that innocent, love, care for child energy that was a part of our community, man. And Michael Jackson was that.
save the.
And we let the world twist his shit out of, if you listen to the way they present him, most devious, wacko Jack. You see how they twisted it out of control, but because they can't,
Yeah.
I would imagine they can't stand that he would be that. You can't be that innocent. Like, it's got to be something
Just
devious
gotta
about
find something.
him.
Right.
It's sad.
Yeah. That's another thing I was talking to my wife about. Just how with a lot of, especially our entertainers, not just the child prodigies, but
Mm,
the majority of them, where there's this. you got to put something in quotes, so you got to put an asterisk, on it. It's like, oh, well, he did this. He's gone where no entertainer has gone before, but here's A, B, C, and D. That just makes you like, oh, it's
Right.
hard to watch or it's hard to listen to. Whether it's Mike or whether you know Prince, whether
Prince.
it's we got Will Smith now. It's
Right. Yeah. And they may fall into some of the trappings themselves, but yeah, that's a great point. Will
yeah,
Smith he started out as the young teenager,
it's
very innocent. He's the innocent good guy rapper,
talented, right?
right? That was his whole thing.
Branched off into yeah,
Yeah, and now he is you would think he is the worst person actor of the world. He slapped this guy, and now his entanglements.
but
It's unfortunate.
right, and and that's the thing, and especially I guess trying to bring it back to the topic where they these entertainers they get to that point, and it's not like it's the music business, the movie industry. It's not like say the NBA. At least the NBA, they give you 4 days. If you're a rookie coming into the NBA, they give you 4 days to say, look, okay, now you making more money than anybody right now. You got to watch out for this, and this. And that's
Isn't
only
this the
four
young man that's
days.
in the drama right now? The
Huh.
basketball guy. There's a young man.
Was
He
a
had a gun or something. Now
oh yeah, yeah.
it's unfortunate.
See,
Yeah.
he skipped the seminar.
Yeah.
Or he
Right.
wasn't paying to something. Oh, I don't need no seminar. I don't know. No, I got this.
Yeah.
Cat cat.
Okay.
But
It.
I mean, but it's sad that that industry is they're just so greedy to the point to where okay, yeah, well, okay, you may be on these drugs, but I guess those drugs are filling your album, so we want that hit album. So do what you do. Or if you go too far, then it's like, oh well, that's just a tragedy. It's so sad, but we got your masters, and we're going to now
Mm,
control your legacy from this point forward. And
yeah.
it's hard for because we're musicians to a point. We do a podcast, and it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh yeah, well, if it was me in that position,
Sure.
I would do
Right.
this and that. But to imagine what is in Michael Jackson's head. What is Prince going through? Did they should the rest of the Jacksons, I mean, they're brothers, they're close, should they have been like, okay, Mike, you kind of going a little too far, come back down?
Which it sounded like they were, but Mike wouldn't
Yeah,
want it at that. Mike don't want to listen at that point. At a certain point,
yeah,
he's
that's
been heralded as this guy. What I need to listen to Randy for? What I need to listen to Mark.
right. He ain't making these millions, I'm making
Right.
them. And,
That's kind of how they start to fall sometimes when they don't. There's nothing to hold them account. I've said this on this show many times, but there was nothing to hold Michael accountable. There's nobody to hold
mhm,
Whitney accountable. I don't know if there's
yeah,
anybody to hold Prince accountable to
yeah,
a certain level.
it's that point to where they can't they feel like they can't be touched, they feel like they're in control,
Right.
or trying to project that image of being in control when inside everything is out of
Mhm.
control.
Mhm.
Going back to the difference between Purple Rain and Under the Cherry Moon.
Mhm.
There was a director, there was a writer, there were producers.
Mhm.
It was more of a collaborative effort. Prince, all he had to do was come up with the music and act in the film.
Right.
Then Under the Cherry. Now I'll give Prince some slack because yeah, that was his first time directing.
Mhm.
And according to everybody that worked with him on the set, it wasn't like he wasn't a tyrant on the set. He was a pretty
Right.
competent director. But what if he was just kind of able to scale back from kind of being Prince to kind of have the clarity to make those decisions like, okay, yeah, I'm directing this, but let me make sure this is the story I want to tell. Maybe, okay, I have the story, but should I have gotten this person to write the screenplay? Should
Yeah,
I have said it in Paris? Should I have casted? Um, I don't know. Trying to think. Maybe should I have casted Angela Bassett instead of Kristen Scott Thomas? What
or
what
whoever it
decisions?
was, who would have been the person back then. Like this was what 86.
Vanessa Williams.
Vanessa. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 I've seen that. Yeah. I think too with Cherry Moon, it was such, and that's just the beauty of Prince is that he wasn't going to give you what you expected.
yeah,
And if you do something like that, then you know that that's a risk. Like it might not work. They might not be receptive to it. I'm doing something that is unheard of in a sense. And yeah, I'm going to do a black and white movie in Paris, kind of a comedy, somewhat
yeah,
a homage to romance movies, as that I liked as a kid. Nobody asked for that, I guess is the thing, right? So it's like, well, then you better kill it because we want to see Purple Rain too, or something in our world that we can understand. And Under the Cherry Moon was just like you wouldn't expect that. I
no,
didn't expect that at all. I mean, listening to the music, the album that came out first, I was I'm just trying to wrap my head around the album. Like
yeah,
I loved Kiss, uh, another lover, hole in your head. Those
yeah.
are like to me, but I could just hear them the first time. I was like, oh,
That's
that's
the
my man.
jam, right?
Some of the other stuff, I was like, whoa, just the way that. I was like, yeah. I was like,
Dun,
whoa, what is
dun,
that?
dun, dun, dun.
I didn't know what to make of that at first. I never heard anything like that before, right? It was new. So I'm wrapping my head around that. I couldn't even imagine there would be a movie like how that would play in a movie because my frame of reference is Purple Rain
Yeah,
in terms of the movie. So I'm thinking, oh, I just can't wait to see the movie. It's got to be dope. I mean, his last one, but when I watched it, I was like, and it started, I was like, wow, he looks so different. Like this, okay, this is cool. And I'm thinking he's gonna act like the kid or something, and he's like Morris or something. Just it was a lot to process. And I think no matter what he would have done, making a risky decision to just do something totally different was always going to be a risk, whether
yeah,
he directed it or not. In my opinion, like it's just no one asked for it to be in black and white. That would be the last thing I would think it would be a black and white movie. So I'm
right.
already kind of like I don't
How is
normally
this going
watch
to work?
black and white movies, but I'm gonna watch this because this is Prince. But okay, what's
I
going
mean,
on
yeah, it's one thing if it's 1970 something, and you at home on a Saturday afternoon, and
here?
it's like, okay, here's Abbott and Costello meet the
Right,
Wolfman, you know,
right.
you know, coming up after that, Ma and Pa Kettle or something like that. But that's one thing, on Sunday,
Prince,
here's
Mr.
Casablanca.
Controversy, Mr. Dirty Mind, 1999. This is a black and white movie. I would never saw
But
that coming.
and like I said, we know now, and I mean, we kind of knew it then, because I never expected an Around the World in a Day.
That was another one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading about the listening party
Hmm.
for it, and it was like, oh, and every song they were like, oh, this sounds like the Beatles. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, well, that's
Hmm.
cool. I guess Prince sound that would be interesting, but it was still different than what I was expecting. And I think
Very different.
with Purple Rain, there was so much mystique. Especially people that were into Prince that
Mm-hmm.
kind of heard, through the grapevine that a movie was going to be made. And, there was that mystique because we never heard him speak.
Right.
We didn't know anything about him
Hmm.
except what was on the records.
Hmm.
So when the film comes out and we see, what the persona he's putting out on the screen, then it's like, okay, all right, so I guess this is Prince. So this is, you know, Prince in everyday life.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, okay, cool. He puts out Around the World in a Day. And for those of us that liked it, cool. For those that jumped off the bandwagon, no big deal. So when you got to Parade, I think again the expectations were, okay, we're going to get the Purple Rain persona, It's just in a different film.
Mm.
And okay, fine, it might be in black and white. That'll be interesting.
Mhm.
But like you were saying earlier, what he was doing, he's laughing, he's joking, he's kind of like Morris Day in the film, and it's
And
like, well,
Jerome is there, but it's like, okay, I know Jerome.
yeah,
That's kind of ties it into like, okay, that sort of humor from Purple Rain slightly you sort of can identify with, but everything else I was like,
but everything else was different. The setting was different,
yeah.
and like you were saying too about how the internet has kind of brought the world to your living room or wherever your computer space is. So now you get to see people in Paris. In fact, I guess one of the ways Under the Cherry Moon is ahead of its time is, Prince and Jerome are Jay-Z and Kanye.
It's in Paris, yeah.
And they're in Paris, right?
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, absolutely. I almost feel like if they had leaned more into that as opposed to when it sort of shifts into sort of the more romantic stuff, if it had just probably been a straight, you know, Jamie Star comedy type of thing, I think that would have been a
and
little better, at least, you know what I mean? Like, and they didn't die or something, like, it'd been like, I would have
oh
loved to see the next adventure of those guys, maybe they went to another country or something,
yeah,
but
yeah, you're right. Yeah,
but the 2 of them on screen, to me, it always works when they're just doing their thing. I was like, "That's okay. This is the thing."
right. Yeah, that's it. That's it exactly. It should have been them being the focus. Prince should have lived through it, and then whatever the next movie would have been.
Mhm. And probably really it probably if you're coming right off the heels of Purple Rain, it would have probably been if it was just Morris and Jerome, them doing that, and maybe Prince could have been a different character in the movie or something. Because to me, it just felt like he was just doing the Morris and Jerome stuff, that sort
Trying
of
to
partnership, and they made another movie off of that. But I can only imagine if it would have been. And I just think I didn't expect Prince to. You didn't know what, like you said, you didn't know how Prince would act. So it was just watching. Wow, is this really him? Or
right,
I don't know how. But if it would have been Morris, I would have expected Morris to be doing that. Like, oh, I wouldn't have been questioning. I would just sort of relaxed into it. Like, okay, it's a comedy. But it
right.
sort of shifts tones between that and sort of this romance thing, and then he kinda speaking on some spiritual stuff. I mean, there's just so much, but I was like, yeah, because nobody couldn't tell him no, so he's just like, I'll do it all. Like, I'll do
Uh,
yeah. But I
yeah,
I
I think.
I love the movie, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, it's to me, it's aged better
Yeah.
for me. I never get tired of looking at it, and
Yeah.
I take it for what it is. Like I said, I get more into the comedy.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, yeah, I kind of get more critical of how the overall film came out, but
Mm.
like I said, in another universe, if that was Spike Lee directing it,
Oh, man, yeah. That would've been yeah. That would've been
it would have been a different,
real
that'd have been a
quick
different show.
real quick, if you got time, since we're just kinda just free
Oh yeah,
talking, are you good?
yeah, oh
Sure.
yeah, yeah. I got plenty of
Okay,
time.
Sign of the Times, the movie, concert movie.
Yes,
See, it brings a smile to your face.
yeah, yeah. Because I again just moved to California. I was there for like maybe about 3 months when the movie came out, and I remember seeing the trailer. I was like, okay, yeah, I got to check this. In fact, the thing that hyped me to go see that was there was a clip in the trailer. It was the Housequake
Mm,
performers, and he's on the ground. He's doing this. I'm like, what? And then he comes up with the split, like,
yeah.
oh, this is gonna be it. In
Yeah,
fact, remember those days when you could go to the theater, watch the whole movie, kind of chill out in the place, stay there
I
and watch it the
do.
second time?
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
remember. I did that. It was a group of us. It was Crush Groove. We went
Oh,
and saw
yeah.
that opening night. It's like maybe 6 or 7 of us sat in a row, watched that movie, and just sat there and then
Mhm.
stayed for the next 2 showings.
Yeah.
And they didn't say nothing. They didn't say nothing. You could just sit there and watch it. Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you wasn't about that second type of popcorn, you
Yeah, he was good. Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, Sign of the Times, the
yeah,
the
that was.
concert movie.
Yeah, I like I said, I've told my story of seeing that. They did a sneak preview and where I had saw it,
Okay.
and then and that was like it was just 'cause we just saw an ad in the paper, and it was the picture. I think Cat's like on the heart or something, and like Prince is like with the guitar, and it just said Prince sign the time Saturday night
Okay.
at this theater. I was like, what the hell?
Was he
'Cause there
gonna be
wasn't no
playing at
adver I
the?
didn't know what the hell was. It was in the Friday paper. I remember we were in science class and we're instead of paying attention, I was looking through the what's happening section of the paper where the movies and stuff. And I was trying to say, "Did you see this, man?" I was like, "What is this?" I'm going on, and I had to work. I was working at McDonald's at the time. I called out sick.
uh,
Just went to the theater, and I remember walking in. It was, and I live in Seattle, Washington, so it was very low black population. I remember walking in. It was wall to wall black people in there. I was like, "Whoa, okay." We're sitting down, and that movie came on. I was blown away because I didn't know,
yeah.
we had no idea what to expect was going to happen. I was like, "Oh my god!" I remember telling my
Yeah.
homeboy Tobias, "You missed it, man. You should have came to that. That shit was crazy." And that was maybe a couple months later. The movie came out, and I dragged it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that movie was
Yeah.
insane, man.
That was.
I used to wish it was bigger though. Like I remember when it came out, and we went to go see it, and it wasn't that many people at the theater. And I'm like, they just don't know. They don't know how dope this is.
Hmm.
The mainstream sort of fans kind of jumped off, but I'm like, if they knew what he is doing in this movie, everyone would go see this. Like
See this? Yeah.
it was fantastic. And I remember it wasn't that long that it came on VHS. It wasn't super
Pretty,
long that it was like, I don't know if it was another year or something, but it was on VHS
it's
very
pretty
quickly.
quick. Yeah.
But I remember
Well,
I would watch
I
it all the time at home.
I think because it had I don't know what the numbers are on that one, but I'm guessing because I'm like I said I went to see it that November and I
Mm,
was living in California. I came home for the holidays that
mm,
year and it was still playing, but yeah, like I said, it wasn't like a packed crowd or it wasn't even half full then. So that
yeah,
was like yeah, like I say, right around Christmas.
okay.
So I'm guessing that it might have had like a decent opening weekend and then it just kind of
Yeah,
dropped off after that because the album had already been out.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and he wasn't coming here for the tour. And I think that was the excitement for me because the only thing I had seen was the Purple Rain tour at
Same
that
here.
point.
Same
Yeah,
here. Yeah, yeah.
so just to kind of see what had changed between that tour and this one,
Man.
man, I wish that would have.
Yeah, that's one of those moments I always be mad at in life when I heard that he wasn't going to be touring America. I was like, "You gotta be kidding!" Just seeing the pictures in Rolling Stone
Yeah.
magazine, and then seeing that movie, I was like, "This is the same guy." Like he is. Well, I guess no. Well, my frame of reference at that point was the Sheridan, Wyoming performance.
Out of hit, yeah,
Had
which kind
that
of I
on,
guess the hit and run tour later.
yeah,
Yeah.
had that on VHS, and then that was the Sheila E. Romance 1600 special that was on MTV, and then at the end,
Oh,
it had the Love Bazaar.
yeah, a
And I
friend of
think
mine had that on VHS. Yeah,
yeah,
he
so
let
I
me borrow
had
that.
that. So I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, this cat is on some stuff," but that was
Yeah.
it. That was all that, you kinda saw, and then he dropped that. I was like, "Oh my god, like, this dude."
Yeah.
Yeah, I was and that's something that's missed. I don't know if it's missed, but that was the thing. Prince, you would see him, it kinda be gone for a few months or maybe a year, and it would come back out, and he would be on a whole other thing, and it'd be even
Oh,
way better, like, god damn, like, what how
uh,
did he get from that, it's you just
you
be
remember
so. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you remember? I don't know if they, since they didn't have, or they have a lot of black stations in Seattle for
There
radio.
was one, K
Just one.
Fox. Yeah.
Okay. Did they have? Did they syndicate Radio Scope?
Radio Scope. Yes, they did.
It's
Yes.
okay.
Super. A lot of what I
Yeah.
do is Steve Ivory, Radio Scope. Yes, I'm very aware of that.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So for me, that was like,
Yeah.
the leaks.
Mm,
Yeah. Because I mean, going as far back as I remember when they were leaking the Purple Rain album,
mm.
and they played the hallway version or a snippet of it. They didn't play the whole thing, but it was like a
Interesting.
snippet of the hallway version.
Interesting.
And that was the thing, like, oh, this album is gonna be lit.
Okay.
This is gonna be the one. And I remember when I bought the Purple Rain album, and I'm playing. I went, well, that was Computer
Mm.
Blue. What happened to the
Yeah, yeah.
what happened
Wow.
to the part in it?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, I always thought I was crazy because I wasn't listening to Radioscope during that time, but
Mm.
afterwards, I remember hearing, um, "I like making movies, but I sure like that money." And I remember they played that, and I was like, "Whoa, what the that was Prince. What is
So,
that?" And never heard it again. You know, many years later when Boots came out, and I always remember I was like, "They played Movie Star, a snippet of Movie Star." So now that you're saying that they were doing that, I don't feel like I was crazy. Like, yeah, they were sorta dropping little stuff in that show.
right, yeah, because I guess they had that inside. They
Yeah.
had that inside scoop. You
Mhm.
know, but like you say, he would go away for a while, but then there'd be that one episode of Radio Scope that drops that
Mm.
breaking news. He's going to come out with an album, or he's working on a
Mhm.
movie, or he's going on tour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That
yeah,
was the thing, that was a part of the Prince. It had always been, I suppose, but yeah, that the waiting period, like you be on uh around the world in a day. You just wrapping your head around, oh, and then 12 inches, oh, okay. And then kind of fade for a second, kiss drop.
ooh,
Whoa, this Prince? This is Prince? And then the video drop. I was like, what? He's
yeah,
like whole different style. This is crazy. Like,
yeah,
man, yeah.
yeah.
Because I remember like Parade. I didn't get that the day it came out. I was kind of young, but I knew it had came out, and I knew a Kiss. I just remember like my stepdad one day. He's like, he showed me this article. He said, "Oh, your boy's got a new one out." I was like, "Oh yeah, that is out. Let me go get that." And just I remember buying it and playing it. I was
Mm,
just like I said, and I'm just so used to listening to those 12 inches from around the world, like America and all. And I'm thinking, oh, he gonna be funked out. Like, and when that came out, it threw me for I was like, wow, this is
yeah,
different. Okay,
yeah.
okay. And then another lover holding your head. I was like, okay. And it was the release party, that thing on MTV,
Give you
and they
the
showed the
charity.
video of around another lover holding your head. I was like, "Oh, this is what this is, like, this is heat." Like, I'm like, "Okay." And the horns of Eric Lee's, and I was like, "Oh, snap. Let me go listen to that record more deeply, pay
Hmm.
attention," you know? And then they did the performance at the end, and I was like, "Yeah, let me go back and listen to these songs again." I'm not giving them their due diligence, you know? This brother will make you work, uh,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
don't know. I remember liking it better than Around the World Today.
Mm,
Um, I guess because it was like going in, I knew, okay, this is going to be a soundtrack to a film. So
okay.
like you were saying earlier, well, where is this song going to fit in the movie? How does
Mm.
somebody, he's dying young, but somebody going to die in the movie? Like,
Right. Yeah, it just seems so sad. I was
it's
like,
sad,
"This is
right?
Prince? So sad. What is going on?"
And I think for a while, yeah, I used to kind of just skip the title track because it was like you had that kind of opening, and it's like, okay, that was cool. New
Mhm,
Position was a lot better.
mhm.
Um,
Wonder
I
You.
Wonder You. I really didn't get into that until after the movie.
Interesting, interesting.
And then, like I said, you had the title track because, like you said, the title track was just such a depressing track. It's like, man, I want to skip over the girls and boys. I want to hear that.
Right. Mm. Girls and boys. Yeah, that was immediate. That was immediate. I thought that was supposed to be. I was like, I get Kiss, but I thought Girls and Boys was going to be just as big because I just thought that song was. I was like, God, this is crazy.
I think if he dropped it as maybe the second single, what did he do? Is
Was it the
Mountains was the second.
Mountains? Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't like Mountains at first. I'll admit to that.
I like the long version better.
The long version is when I got into it.
Yeah,
But when it first was on the record, I was just like, I didn't like. I felt it was flat or something. The beat or something. I don't know. There was something I just couldn't hear it. And then when I heard the
yeah,
12, I was like, oh, this is dope. Actually, I wasn't paying it.
yeah.
I just couldn't hear it right or something. But yeah,
Now
now
I think,
Mountain is dope.
yeah, now I think Earth, Wind, and Fire should have covered it, but
Interesting. I could interesting. I could see that. Huh.
but the 12. Yeah, I mean, I like it. Even without the that what do you call it, the album version.
Mm.
I like it now, but back then it was like, yeah, it's all right track, but the 12-inch single.
Yeah. I almost sometimes I was like, I get why the albums had to be sequenced and edited the way that they did, I guess. But if Mountains would have just put that version on the album, that it'd have been a showpiece. And I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah,
Same
yeah,
with another lover holding your head. If they'd have just put the whole version like that on the album, and then the album probably would have been a double album or something. But yeah, that's a
yeah.
beast of a song. Golly.
So
With the
now, what
girls
if?
sing.
Yeah,
Yeah, he goes.
Let me ask you this. So, say, okay, if Purple Rain wasn't the huge success,
Mhm.
and even though leading up to that film's release, you had a lot of stuff that was in the can already. Stuff that would have been around the world in a day.
Mhm.
So, say Purple Rain drops, so it doesn't sell 30 million, it sells, I don't know what, 4 million.
Okay.
Of course, I don't know. I guess Warner Brothers would have looked at that as a win. But say if the film flopped, but the soundtrack still did well,
Mm.
would you have gotten it around the world in a day? Or would you have gotten something,
Oh,
say, Dance Electric and,
you
you
know
know,
what?
She's Always in My Hair, just
Roadhouse Garden or something like that.
Roadhouse Garden, All Day, All Night? Would that have been
Mm.
the
Mm.
follow up? And then would you have gotten to a Parade or a Sign of the Times even?
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, I think it could have changed it. I wouldn't have been mad at that though.
Yeah.
Uh, it would have been interesting if he would have been allowed. Well, I say allowed. Like I said, it would still would have Purple Rain still the album could have been a hit, and he just quickly moved on to those other songs.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's something to think about because he had a lot of heat sitting on,
Yeah.
you know, at that time. I wonder if that and in that world would the time have stayed together or would they have still broken up or would there have been a family?
I was to say, wasn't Morris gone before,
I guess yeah, he was
the,
before the movie came
right
out.
after the filming of it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. He had bangers. To me, that's kind of where he starts to get to the point where and maybe it was because it was such a period between. Excuse.
Bless
Uh, Thank you. But the period between 1999 and Purple Rain, there's a lot of recording going on. And then even when the Purple Rain is album, he's still done. He's still recording a
That's true.
lot of stuff that we get to see later.
Right.
And I think that's to me that was when he really started stockpiling a lot of
A
bangers.
lot of stuff. Yeah.
That's just sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting period. Yeah, because I was just jumping around, always listening to Sign of Times, but listening to that album, I'm like, even at that point, he's pulling from some stuff from way back in the day, recutting it, Take the Place of Your Man. We find out that's from '79 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I didn't realize it was
He's,
that early.
Strange Relationships was
Yeah,
from '82 possibly. So he's pulling even at that point. He's like, and he's already got a vast trough of songs at this point to pull. Dream Factory, Crystal Ball.
the
He's
ball,
still pulling from like way back.
Camille. Yeah,
Yeah, like yeah, Camille. Yeah, yeah. That's the quantum world. Is if you to just put those records out. If the Camille album came out, Crystal Ball came out, like
right.
man,
Not not two LPs, but three.
three popping them. Yeah, but I do believe this. We'll kind of wrap it up. As much as we, hey, the estate's not doing this. Hopefully, I'm alive, because I do believe there will be at some point where they will be releasing a lot of his music.
Yeah,
I just hope I'm alive. I think there will be the Madhouse blowout one day. I think there will be the Crystal Ball, or there'll be even if it's songs that we've all have, and there's a lot of generations that don't have those,
right.
and it's great work. And I can imagine there will be a time where they're just like, yeah, here's the concert tour,
Mm,
all this music he had, it's coming out, and we're gonna put that out. Whatever those releases look like, whether they're physical or whatever digital.
mm,
But I do think there will be a time when that stuff. Same, I think the
uh,
videos too. I think there'll
yeah,
be videos and stuff that come out. I just hope I'm
I hope
around
so.
to see it.
We gotta. I always say we gotta eat our Wheaties and our vegetables and take our
Yeah,
vitamins. And I gotta do better staying in shape. And
yeah, yeah. Because that
yeah,
guy's got too much. It's just too much material that hasn't been touched, man.
exactly.
And I, I just don't think. I don't think none of us can wrap our heads around like how to do it. I think we're still tied to these album models and concepts of stuff. But that dude was just fluidly recording shit
Yeah,
at all times. So he wasn't, what I mean? Like he wasn't stopping. And I just think there just needs to be an avenue or some way they can do that, whatever that is. But
yeah. To me, I think they just need a plan. I mean, now I don't, I don't
yeah.
work for the estate. I don't have any inside information, but just from where I'm sitting and comparing it to other legacy artists,
Mhm.
there's not a plan. Doesn't seem to be a plan. I mean, we keep hearing, "Oh, be patient. This is coming. This is coming." Like we had those leaks of the
Oh,
Diamonds and Pearls and the Symbol album
right,
covers.
right.
Now, 2 years ago, if those covers had leaked, there would have been an announcement by the end of the week
Right.
or in the next couple of weeks. But it's
Yeah.
still quiet, still nothing. Maybe something this week, but I,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
will. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say it's so much material. Um, I mean, if we can get to 20, 25, 30 years, we can hang on that long.
Right.
I'd be cool with that. Just like, I'm sure there'd be like another 150 years of music to go, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but so long as okay, I've got a whatever, from Purple Rain to Love Sexy, Super Deluxe. You can give me the 1993 to 96 sessions in a
Mm-hmm.
box set, reissue, remaster the albums properly. I'd be cool. I'd be happy with that. Drop this live video, this live concert. I'd be happy with that.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was gonna say I did hear from somebody who would know that the diamonds and pearls is a real thing. Like they don't know what the final stuff about it is, but they were
Mhm.
like, yeah, we've done interviews and stuff for the estate for it. Just a
Okay.
matter of when it come out. So it is a thing. I don't know if it's a special thing, deluxe and all that, but they were like, yeah. They were like, yeah, they played us some music. I was shocked. I was like, oh,
Okay.
I ain't heard that version of the song. Okay, So
Oh,
I'm
okay. So
I'm just like keeping an open mind, but somebody who's a part of it did say, like, yeah, definitely.
So,
This was a
okay,
while
so
ago they was working on it, so we'll see what happens.
yeah, I think there was some stuff that was getting ready to drop, but since
Mhm.
they changed the leadership or the change the
Right.
control of it, I'm sure they vetoed some things and
Hmm.
decided to sit on a few other things. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna be optimistic.
Yeah, yeah, me too, man. And, and I think too, I have to understand that I got to be happy with what I have gotten though too,
Yes.
because most artists, you wouldn't get this type of in his
It,
lifetime. Most artists would have never had that body of work, which is
mm,
enough into itself. Like
right.
Prince put in way more work than anybody. He dropped albums year after year for us for the most part. Tour, it was so much that I could die and be happy with
Hmm.
what I got. Like if I just sit down and appreciate all this, all the official stuff, all the
Yeah.
unreleased stuff we've been playing all our lives, and all these video, and we got to see him in person. You know,
Yeah.
it's incredible, man. Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at look at Stevie Wonder. You know,
yes,
he's got a vault, and we ain't seen nothing.
nothing, yeah, yeah, and his stuff is. I,
But
I, I don't know. Maybe I'm not in those circles. I hope there is a Stevie fan base like this where they talking about his stuff, and you know what I mean, because he deserves that. I'm like, I was listening to his stuff yesterday, and I was like, what album was Talking Book or something? That was like his 15th album or something. I
yeah,
was like, that was his 15th or 16th album, and that was cold. Like, how many
yeah,
people can say they 15th album was on some classic ground? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Forever mankind will know these songs, man. Like that dude is,
yeah.
and he can't see.
No,
You know what I'm saying? In a traditional sense. I was like, it's
but
ridiculous.
yeah, I mean that's amazing. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure that there's a fan base. I know related to that, the Jackson Five community. They're like
Oh, they
that
go. Yeah.
that album that Stevie produced. That's locked in the vault.
Wait. Are you saying that there was a Stevie produced Jackson now? I didn't know this.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
What time frame was this?
This is around '74. They
Interesting.
say there's not that many tracks that he did, but I think it might be either a whole album or at least up to about 5 tracks. Because part of those sessions was the "You Haven't Done Nothing," where they sing the
Oh,
background vocals
okay.
on that, and then "Buttercup" was released on what is that? It was some compilation. Came out not long after Michael had passed, but it
Mhm.
had like a couple of vault tracks,
Huh.
um, alternate versions of "I Want You Back." But there's a song called "Buttercup" that Stevie wrote and produced.
Interesting. I
It
gotta go.
was
Gotta go search that out.
oh yeah,
Wow. Yeah, man. Boy, I tell you, listen, sir, man, I so
yeah.
enjoyed this conversation.
I know.
Takes me back to the days when we
Ooh,
used to just
thank
talk
you
about
for
Prince and be arguing. Jesse did this. Oh no, Prince did that. Oh man, I love it. I love it. Thank you, sir.
yeah.
Tell us the name of your podcast once again.
All right. It is now Amari Music Talk, and you can find it on my Amari Communications YouTube channel. So definitely like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, all that stuff, and be notified on the latest.
Right on, man. Well, we're gonna check that out. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Leave your comments below. Please like and subscribe to our videos. Share these out there with other fans out there. And work it like a job. We'll see
Yeah.
you next time. Peace.
All right. Peace.
All right, stop that.